All right, good afternoon. I want to start today's briefing like I'm going to start every briefing that I have moving forward. Before we get started, I'm going to take 100 seconds of silence in recognition of the 100 people that have lost their lives in the city of Oakland. Every time we start like that, it's a sobering reminder of why I took this job, why any of us do this every day. I did this because I wanted to be a part of helping to make Oakland be a safe city. It's unfortunate that I have to come before you today and say that earlier this morning, we had our 100th homicide of the year. In my long, over 2-decade career, I thought we as a department and as a community have worked so hard over many years to be beyond seeing 100 homicides in our community. Unfortunately, we reached that mark in mid-September. It's been a very challenging weekend for the Oakland Police Department and the Oakland community. We've had 4 homicides since Saturday, 10 in a 7-day period. So much violence, so many guns, so many senseless lives lost. If this is not a calling to everybody in this community that there is a crisis, I don't know what is. Fact of the matter is that we haven't spoken loud enough about the violence that we've experienced. We have not talked about the now 100 lives that have been lost in our community. I started off this press briefing with taking 100 seconds. I hope that others in this city take the time to recognize the lives that have been lost and talk about solutions. This is not about finger pointing. This is not about political issues. This is not about should we have more officers or how we address gun violence. This is about a crisis in our community that is taking lives. I just want to go over a few. It's been 10, but since Saturday, it started off at 11 p.m. We responded to the 2300 block of Legion Avenue on a report of ShotSpotter activations. When officers arrived there, we made contact with a gentleman who was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. That gentleman has subsequently succumbed to his injuries. A couple hours later at 2:15 a.m., we responded to calls of multiple people shot in the 300 block of 17th Street. When officers arrived, we then encountered multiple people with gunshot wounds. One of the victims that was struck, unfortunately, was pronounced deceased at a local hospital. Later that day, at 12:30 p.m., we responded to the 2300 block of Humboldt Street on another call of shots fired. Upon arriving at that location, we encountered a gentleman who had been struck by multiple gunshots, who succumbed to his injuries. And unfortunately, this morning, we had our 100th homicide in the 7200 block of San Leandro Avenue, where we responded to a call of multiple shots fired and an individual suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Upon our arrival at that location, unfortunately, that gentleman had also lost his life. Today with me is our homicide commander, Lieutenant Fred Chavies, and also our Violent Crimes Operations Center Commander, Roland Holmgren. We will continue to work diligently to address these homicides. We will continue to seek the public's help in addressing these homicides with any information that they can share to help us solve these crimes. I've said so many times that the solution to reducing violent crime will not be just police. We need the communities that continue to use firearms in our community. Captain Holmgren and his violent crimes operation teams will be on the streets 7 days a week trying to identify those responsible for these crimes. We've been successful arresting those that have committed homicides in our city, but that is not the outcome we are looking for. We would much rather people put down guns and not cause this violence in our community and leave this fear and trauma. But unfortunately, for those that have chosen to use firearms, we have to hold people accountable. We're going to be out in our community 7 days a week looking for those who have been shooting firearms and causing this violence in our community. I say before I pass to Lieutenant Chavies, who will go over the last 10 homicides that we've had in the last 7 days, that this is an effort that we all have to take on. That if we know individuals that are involved in violence, if we know individuals that are carrying firearms, if we know individuals who feel like their lives are at risk, we need your help. Our Department of Violence Prevention is here to support and provide resources and services to those in need, but we have to get the people in our community that are involved in this violence to put guns down. We also have to learn to manage conflict without resulting to the use of firearms. Now, when we have events in our downtown and people who come to peacefully go attend a concert or a venue and unfortunately have to encounter gunfire, should be unacceptable to this entire community. Continue to say everybody deserves to live in a safe community. We can be vocal about certain things, but I just don't understand why this community cannot be vocal about 100 lives lost. We can scream and yell about anything that the police department does wrong. But in this time, we can't speak up about what's plaguing all of us, and that's gun violence. I just ask that everybody come together collectively to say that this has to stop. I say this every time we have a press conference. I'm tired of appealing before you. We got to do the work. I'll be out in the community meeting with people, but I need people to step up and grab your loved ones and tell them, put the guns down. We want them to live. We want them to be alive and free. And if they continue to pick up firearms, they put themselves at risk and they put our entire community at risk. With that, I'll let Lieutenant Chavies talk about the homicides that we've had in the city of Oakland since last Monday.
Good afternoon. My name is Frederick Chavies. I'm with the Oakland Police Department's Homicide Section. I'm the commander of that section. On last week, on Monday afternoon, we had 2 homicides in which a male and a female were both murdered in the presence of 2 young children. The Homicide Section is actively investigating that incident, and if there's anyone who would have information regarding that incident from the 3400 block of 68th Avenue, we ask that you come forward and speak with the investigators at the Homicide Section. Later that week, we had a homicide that occurred on 57th Avenue. The incident that occurred on 57th Avenue was an incident in which a young man was killed in the neighborhood. Investigators and patrol units have since made an arrest, and we are going to be presenting that case before the district attorney's office for charging today. Later that evening, there was an incident that occurred in East Oakland in which gunfire erupted and a young man was killed by a vehicle trying to flee the scene. That incident is being investigated as a homicide. Even later that evening, there appeared to be a number of individuals who fired high-powered rifles, AK-47 and AR style rifles, assault rifles, at an individual, striking a middle-aged man and critically wounding him. And that occurred in the 5700 block of Los Angeles Street in North Oakland. Also during the week, there was a middle-aged man who was struck by gunfire in the 1200 block of 46th Avenue. During that incident, the gentleman succumbed to his injuries. And we're asking that anyone who has information regarding that homicide, that they come forward as well to the Oakland Police Department's Homicide Section. The chief has outlined the incidents that occurred over the weekend. We're asking that anyone who has information regarding the party that occurred in the 2300 block of Legion, or the incident that occurred in the 350 block of 17th Street, that they come forward. There was also an incident that occurred just this morning outside the Coliseum BART station. If there's anyone that was in the area or that was near the BART station or otherwise that may have information regarding that homicide, we ask that you contact the Oakland Police Department's Homicide Section at 510-238-3821.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to have Captain Roland Holmgren talk about our 7-day enforcement operation that the Violent Crimes Operations Center will be doing to address the individuals responsible for violence. And a relentless follow-up will be taken on to try to bring these people to justice.
Thank you, Chief. It's Captain Roland Holmgren, ROLAND-HOLMGREN. As the Chief said, I am the commander of our Violent Crime Operations Center. For the most part, what we do is my job is the after effect. The after effect when somebody makes the unfortunate decision to pull the trigger. The after effect when somebody decides that they should use some sort of violence, some sort of fear to go out there and terrorize the community, commit armed robberies, armed carjackings. I am the after effect that with my officers is going to use intelligence and information to come and find you, right? To constitutionally make that apprehension so that you can't go out there and harm the community anymore. So that children can go in front of their homes and play and not have to worry about stray rounds coming through their front yards. So what we have done is we have officers dedicated to specifically violent crime. Since we started in early April, we've made around almost 40 arrests for homicides using intelligence, information, and precision-based policing to go out there and just find not just those that are committing minor offenses, but those that are out there hurting our community, those that are pulling triggers and making senseless decisions to use guns in our communities. 24 hours a day, we have officers that are assigned in our Crime Gun Intelligence Task Force that is listening for radio calls, that is providing almost real-time information to our patrol officers so that they could go out there and safely apprehend those that are involved in these particular incidents. We've got 7-day-a-week coverage when we're out there, not just in any particular spots of the city, but where the intelligence, where the information, where the community needs us the most. So we are dedicated to going out there and impacting those that are willing to pull triggers. Thank you.
So our ceasefire strategy continues to be our primary strategy for reducing violence. Our approach is always collaborative. It's going to be with our Department of Violence Prevention, providing support and services to those that are willing to accept those services, and also really leaning on community to be a great presence in everything that we do, from our night walks that community leads, as well as our direct communication through custom notifications and other means. So it really is a collaborative approach. We hate to reach a point where enforcement needs to be leveraged, but in this case it's clear that there are some out there that will not put down guns, and we have to address it through accountability. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll take whatever questions you might have, or any of our command staff.
So it looks like City Council is going to vote to allow more police academies tomorrow. Is there a staffing shortage that those academies could help address violent crimes?
Yes, there's a severe staffing shortage. Right now we have 695 officers. This is the smallest this department has been in nearly 10 years. And it's also the highest level of violence we've seen in nearly 10 years. So those things coincide to me. I believe that there's a need for additional officers, additional resources to support our efforts. We've lost over 46 officers from this department in the last 4 months. That is a difficult gap to fill. And so we need these academies to help fill that gap. We need more additional officers in the ranks. We need to get them out into the field so that they can respond to these 911 calls for service, as well as help us address the violent crimes that we spoke of so far.